Hey lovelies, you're welcome back to Reviews and Recaps. Let's get into today's episode. So today we're going to be talking about Put a Ring on It Season 4, Episode 6. So I'm going to be sharing my highlights from this episode. And let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought of this episode. Did you enjoy it? What were you thinking? So let's start with Catherine and Ricky. Now, is it just me or Ricky always looks so scared of Catherine? Like, you're sitting right next to her. It's like almost like, oh, you okay? Yes. It's just very much given you're very scared. Also, I don't see any chemistry between them. Even when you guys, I don't know if you guys saw their interaction. It was like the second scene, and their interaction was so dry, no affection. It was just giving friends who are together because they are single and there was no one else who wanted them. In my opinion, that's what it's given. It's given we're trying to force something that is not there. And I just think they need to cut it out. So let's talk about Zay and Jasmine for a second. I feel like Zay does not know how to have conversations at all. He is always shutting down during conversations. I felt so bad for Jasmine. It's like she's emotional and he is not emotionally intelligent at all. So he cannot navigate like dating her. Like, so for instance, when Jasmine was trying to find out why was it that he paid attention and remembered every single detail about his date, but when they talk, he doesn't pay attention to her. He doesn't remember what she says. And he was like, maybe she must have activated my listening skills. I'm like, why would you say that to your girlfriend? You already know she's already insecure about the whole thing, and this is something she wants to address with you. So how do you then say something that feeds into that insecurity? It's almost like he just egged her on into feeling that way. Then he said you shouldn't feel that way when she was like, is there something she needs to be doing? And I'm like, sir, you can't tell her how to feel. She feels how she feels. You need to then try to understand where she's coming from and empathize with her, as opposed to like just shutting down. It's like he comes across as one of those people who have had such a hard life, right? And because of that, their responses to anyone who brings any sort of emotion is that they are closed off. They can't deal with any sort of emotion. It seems like Zay would be better suited to a girl who is less emotional, very logical, and is like, okay, this is what you've done. This is what I need from you. This is when I need it. As opposed to the way Jasmine comes across as emotional. She wants to talk about her feelings. She wants to get to the bottom of stuff. He just doesn't want that. And it was very much given me he has a lot of work to do when it comes to communication. His communication skills is all the way off. Like, it ain't it at all. Now let's move on. Let's talk about Marcus and Catherine. So Marcus and Catherine were on a date together. You already know how I feel about them from like the previous episode. They're getting along so well. I did notice it felt like Marcus was doing a bit too much. He was very, very handsy. He was extremely flirtatious. He kept complimenting her, which is not a bad thing. But then he also said he had a strong libido, and I was like, bro, no, cut it out. Like, cut it out. Like, we're on a date. We're on like second or third date. It ain't that deep, bro. Chill. And then when he gave her a kiss on the neck, I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like you seemed a bit amped for the cameras right now. So that's the part I didn't quite like. However, I love their interaction together. I feel like their interaction together, they actually seem more like a couple than her interaction with Ricky. Half of the time, Ricky does not appear like he cares. He just appears like, oh, whatever, man. Let's just get on with it, right? So Ricky and his braids kept staring at Marcus and Catherine, and he was pissed. And my thing is, if anything, right, think about that. Yes, of course, I would be pissed if I was Ricky, right? However, turn that into a conversation that you express to Catherine. Okay, Catherine, I feel like you were being very flirtatious on this date. I didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it. Say something. You being upset and acting like you don't care and you're not upset is what is bothering Catherine and bothering the rest of us on this show, the rest of us watching the show. We're like, bro, you're clearly bothered. Why are you acting like gangster now? Like, we both know you ain't gangster. Like, what is this? Anyways, let's move on to Jasha and Julia, right? So Jasha's day came through with the pow pow. She came through with the breast and the booty. I'm like, all right, girl. Okay. Jaya definitely was not feeling that, but I think she handled it well. She even hugged the girl. I'm like, all right, girl, I appreciate it. She's just like, at the end of the day, it's about my man. It ain't got nothing to do with me. That's my man's date. Let me be respectful. And I totally appreciated that. Also, guys, is it just me or I feel like Zay set himself up for failure? When that lady, I think it's Naya, when she walked in and Zay had the audacity to say, no disrespect to my lady, but you're pretty. And she's like, Zay's like, what? In front of me? You didn't even let her leave the house? I knew that I knew that Jasmine was not about to let him disrupt her day. Like, after that, she was like, yeah, it's on. And she came through, I have to say. Like, so Jasmine went on a date with Sean. He got her some flowers, which I thought was sweet. And Zay kept staring at Jasmine throughout the date. Like, Jasmine kept laughing. Jasmine kept rubbing, touching. It was like they were having a good old time. Sean definitely came across as someone who listens, someone who is emotionally intelligent. They were definitely vibing, I have to say. Zay was not feeling that. But that was the highlight for me, because I'm like, Zay, if you don't treat her well, know that someone else will. So you better get it together, sir. Get it together. The other part that really, really got me, so I'll talk about Marcus one last time and then we'll move on to Jacoby in a second. Let's talk about Marcus for a second. Now, Marcus said something that really, really got me, and I have to say that I agree with it. Marcus was saying to Catherine that I feel like you've been tolerating. And that's exactly what that is. I feel like her relationship with Ricky is very much tolerating. It is not where love is not like we love each other, we want to be together, it's not giving that. It's giving we tolerate each other. We've been friends for a long time. We feel like we're the only ones that can both deal with each other, so we're gonna stay together. Now let's talk about Jacoby. I feel like this is the part that we're probably all waiting for to talk about, right? So Jacoby and Joya were having a conversation. So Joya starts asking him about like dating a woman with children. Has he ever done that? And he was like, yes, he has. And to be completely honest, he couldn't take a woman that has children seriously. And so he's like, if you have a child, you'll put the child first. But then I would have to put you first. And that's a very, very interesting perspective. And he is right. Because if you have a child outside of wedlock and that's your first kid or whatever, if you have a child outside of your marriage or relationship, whatever the case may be, that child will be your priority. That child will always come first before your relationship, right? And so if he wants to be first, then he should not date a woman with kids. And I completely appreciated his candidness, his honesty and whatnot. One thing he also said is like, when her kid gets to that age of being a teenager, he's probably going to be like, you're not my father. Now, of course, he put the caveat that her kid could be perfectly respectful and not that kind of kid, but that is what his experience has been, and his experience hasn't always been the best. I appreciated that, and up until this point, I was completely with him. Now, the part that got me was when he was like, he has built himself up to a place where he wants to date a top tier woman and he does not want to settle. Right? Now, he tried to clean it up and said, a top tier woman, that doesn't mean that, you're not a top tier woman if you've had kids. But He then tried to clean it up a bit more and said, but there was no real benefit in dating a woman who has children for him. And I completely get it. We might not completely agree with the approach. Could he have been a little bit more softer in his approach? 100%. Especially when he started going about, he doesn't have to settle. He's set himself up into a certain place where he has to date a top tier woman. All of that bit is where it went left for him. Before that, I was completely with him. I was like, you're completely right, all of that. But I think sometimes it's not just about what you say, but how you say it, okay? And I feel like there was a need for emotional intelligence and a bit more tact in the way that he should have approached the conversation, especially when you're having this conversation with the person who has children or who has a child. But aside that, I completely understand where Jacoby is coming from. Now, not saying that I feel the exact same way, but I completely understand where he's coming from. And everyone is entitled to how they feel. At the end of the day, not everyone can date people who have children. I have a friend who has said to me she cannot do it. Like, she just knows that she's not going to be able to treat the kid like she will treat her kids. And if you're not going to be able to do that, then there is no point. You have to be able to give unlimited love to that kid. If you're not going to be able to do that the same way you love your own children, you should be able to love your bonus child like that. So that's my personal perspective on that. But I appreciate when people are forthcoming and honest and say, I put my hand up, I can't do it, it's not for me, than like stringing that person along and saying that. So what he did say was like, he can date them, but he can't be serious. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate the honesty. One thing that was interesting was like, Joya was like, well, he's on a date with a woman that has children instead of him trying to secure the third date. Why should he want to secure the third date at the end of the day? His point, he's on the show, whilst he's on the show to go on dates, at the end of the day, right? He comes across as someone who is financially stable, right? So does not necessarily need the money from the show. Of course, the extra check always helps, but he doesn't need that. So he doesn't need to be out on these dates pretending that he sees something serious with you when he doesn't. So if anything, I completely appreciate the fact that he was like, nope, and just came out and said what he said. Wouldn't she have appreciated, or wouldn't she have hated if he went on the third date before saying what he felt about that situation? So she needs to get it together. And finally, Ricky with his 2 braids. Now, this is the part that gets me about Ricky and annoys me, aside his braids, right? Why were you in front of the doctor now, Dr. Stacy? So Dr. Stacy is asking about how you feel about the fact that she's saying all these nice things about Marcus and the date. And he was acting unbothered. He was acting unaffected. But what was funny is if you watch the playback of when he was on his dates, he was very much bothered. So why are you suddenly acting unaffected? And this is the thing, dating him must be stressful because it's like no emotions, everything is cool, even when it ain't cool. Dr. Stacy tried to clean it up for him a little bit, and she's like, this is where you need to show your emotions. So you're telling me you're like cool about her like having all this experience with this guy, and he was just there acting all cool. Sister Catherine, he does not want you. He is complacent. He is used to having you there, and he feels like you will never leave him. Leave him, please. Go get yourself a real man that will love and take care of you, that would have emotions, that will be emotionally intelligent. Ricky is acting like a little baby with his 2 braids, and I am feeling it. So girl, if you know what's good for you, leave that man alone. Those are my thoughts on this episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let's continue the conversation in the chat. Give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and tap that bell for notifications so you know every single time that I post. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you. Bye.